Greetings, everybody, all over the world. I tell you, I've got people checking in from I think just about every continent in the world, except maybe Antarctica. Um, and there were some interesting questions. What we had here, we'll get to those in a minute. I have a few announcements before we begin. I did an interview with one of the marketing guys at Bridgestone um, the other day, and that will be the subject of the upcoming S-Day video. Bridgecon does two things. They sell Anytone radios, and they're sending me one to review. And they also sell repeater systems. And these can be analog repeaters, D-Star, DMR, and so on. I've also got an upcoming review on this radio right here. This radio says Baofeng, but it's DMR, and it's Radioddity that sells Baofeng's DMR radios. If you go to, you have to go to the Radioddity webpage to find this. It looks like it's going to be a very nice radio. Also, in this last week's video from last Wednesday, it was about the QRP Labs clock kit and the GPS kit that went with that. And apparently that actually created a number of sales of the thing because Hen Summers asked on his chat group if anybody knew why he was getting so many orders. And that was right after I made the review, so I guess it's pretty popular. It's a cool little kit, and I really like it, and mine's just sitting over here silently ticking away. I've been asked several times by people to review my main radio, the FTDX 3000. It's a Yaesu radio that I have. I love the radio. It's a wonderful radio. I've had it 2 or 3 years now, and I will do that in a video. I'll do a review of it since I just did a review of the ICOM 7300. I know the FTDX 3000 pretty well since I've had it for a long time and used it quite a bit, but I certainly am not familiar with all of its features, so this may be an interesting review. I've also been told by Bob Slovic, who is one of my faithful patrons and has been for quite a while, that the Islands HD1 radio will now offer 200,000 contacts. There's a firmware update that will allow it 200,000 contacts. As you know, the DMR community is growing by leaps and bounds. I asked the guy from Bridgecom, who's going to be Daniel Kohanowitz, asked him, do they sell more D-Star or more DMR repeaters? He says, definitely DMR. Seems to be the way things are going. So in terms of the total number of contacts in the world, that's a rapidly growing number. And there's a place you can go on the web to register to see, but 200,000 contacts may last us for a while. A lot of people are getting you have to get a number that matches up to your call sign. And a lot of the newer radios, like the Islands and so on, will store the entire database. So if somebody comes up and it gets that reference number, it can look in the database and put up the particulars about the individual, such as city, state, country, things like that. Also wanted to announce that I'm going to the Reno Nevada State Convention. That's in Reno. Let me just slip to that here, top screen. Okay, this is NVCon. It's 19th and 20th, which is a Friday and a Saturday in Reno. And we're going out there anyway because my wife is going to be seeing a friend, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. They've got a nice schedule for forums and things like that already set up. And so it should be a very, very interesting presentation. I'm really looking forward to that. That is in July 19th and 20th. So about a month away, a month and a half away. Okay. The other thing, let's see, I wanted to mention was that the new general manual is out. It seems just a tad thicker than the older one. This has an entire new section on digital. So I'm going to be updating the general videos. The general videos that I have are 8 years old. I didn't update for the last updated manual, so I'm going to have to do a fair amount of updating to match the 9th edition. That's the one you want, the 9th edition. And it's the one that covers 2019 through 2023. 2023, okay. Interestingly, this is only available in spiral bound now. Now, I like that because I can unhook the spiral thingy up here, unroll the spiral, and then I can put pages into my scanner to make high resolution graphics for the videos, which I will do quite a bit of, I'm sure. So look for that. I will start seeing the updated general videos. It was halfway through the last set of general videos that I decided that I needed really to fix up my production standards. And so the later videos, I think, have higher quality. So I'll go back through all of them and see what I can do to make those of reasonable quality. There was a little bit of a festouche, by the way, over the fact that this is available only in comb binding. There's no soft bound type of binding for it. I didn't even notice it because I was going to buy the one with the spiral binding anyway, but apparently a few people who would prefer the regular binding for their collection aren't able to get that anymore, and I think that's probably going to be the case going forward. It's easier for the league to maintain just one version rather than two. Two part numbers means two sets of bins, 2 months of shipping, that sort of thing like that. So let me go back here and look at some of the comments that have come in. We've got Denmark, Morocco, in near Mount St. Helens in Washington. I've been there, by the way. That is very impressive. San Diego and the Emerald Isle, Ireland, and the TA, I think, is Turkey. What is the lowest frequency patch antenna that can be made? There is no lower limit. It simply the dimensions start getting out of hand if you use them for too low a frequency. The dimensions just get weird. Big, really big. Good afternoon from Farmington. That's just down the road for us. That's Michael Lloyd. He's the one who introduced me to surface mount components and actually gave me an old microscope that he had that I have used successfully to do surface mount components. I'm about to do another kit that includes a surface mount component. It's not pre-mounted, so I think with the microscope and the things that Michael taught me, I might be able to do it. Michael is home in Texas, but he's in Farmington for work and wants to know how he should sign for CW Ops. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. I think, I'd have to look at the map. I'm not sure I've got a map. The call area for New Mexico. There's a couple ways you can sign. Technically, you don't have to do anything special. You can just sign any 5U. But what you can do is NE5U slash whatever the number is for Arizona, and I can't remember. It's not 7, is it? It's not 5, that's for sure. Let me just look up here. Main overhead. Okay. No, I don't want main overhead. I want the top screen. And we're going to go look for amateur radio call areas. Okay, New Mexico is in 5 if you're going to be down in Farmington, New Mexico. So you could sign as, let me get back where we were here. You could sign as NE5U Portable 5. Now, the way you would do that on Morse code is NE5U slash 5. And the slash in Morse code is da dit dit da dit. Da dit dit da dit. It's technically known as a virgule or something like that. It's just forward slash. A forward slash is da dit dit da dit. Da dit dit da dit. And then dit 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 for the 5. And that tells people that you're portable and that you're portable in that area. So in terms of location, usually on CW you give a city and state, Framingham, New Mexico. Okay, from Alberta, Nebraska. Just did a ham radio event, Little Miami River Cleaners. Sounds cool. Miami River, that's in Ohio, isn't it? Okay, let's see. Ham radio outlet in Portland for an ICOM 5100A. Good. Tacoma. Oh, yes, the museum ships weekend. I didn't participate this year. I did last year. Our club put on a very nice effort on behalf of the museum ships. And I've got some pictures of it that I'm putting up on our club webpage at montrosehamradio.org. Let's see. Canada. And then excellent clam chowder, country cousin. Good. Let's see. Oops. I lost it there. Yeah, the term ham radio outlet, it's not really an outlet store. It's a retail store. They're playing on the idea that the prices will be lowers. CK Refinishers is working on his Amateur Extra. Now, and I keep losing the spot here. I'm going to have to go through them quickly. Just update HD1. All right. Let me get down to the bottom here. Question today on QRZ.com forums about an old SWR meter. All right. Let's see. Included photos. Yes, please do include photos when you write. You can write to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. Attach photos, drawings, things like that. Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, very, very good. Let's start our work on our questions, shall we? Boy, I've got a pile of them here. They start on May 17th. First, I want to go over one that is from last week. It was an answers about using SDR Uno, which is the software that goes with the SDR Play wood front. One should select LIF or ZEF. Now, it's actually LIF or ZIF, LIF or ZIF, and it has to do with where the VFO is located relative to a stretch of spectrum on the pan adapter. I went through the documentation and found out that it's LIF and ZIF, not ZEF. But I frankly couldn't find in the documentation where that was covered, so I apologize for that. I'll have to contact the people at SDR Uno. This one is from Brad Rich, and he's N6GR. I watched your review of your vertical installation. You commented on your first set of radials that I believe were buried. Yes, they were. Got the impression that it did not work well. No, it didn't. And with your new set of radials, it's working better that are on the top of the ground. Yes, they are. I buried the radials too deep. They were about 6 inches deep. That makes for a nice ground, but not for a good radial field. Radials, buried radials, I understand, should not be more than 2 inches in the ground. So fortunately, I have the space under some trees where I can put out that ground plane. And it's got quite a few insulated radials out there of random length. It seems to work very well. When I installed my Step-IR 33-foot vertical antenna, I also had a need for a new back lawn. I had the weed-dominated lawn pulled up, laid down 50 radials using a DX Engineering radio plate, and resodded. Thus, my radials are below the lawn, not by very much. The sod's only about that thick. So, and the actual sod that's in there is only about yay thick. So that should probably work pretty well. And he says it works well. Okay. This one is from Brad Rich again, N6GR. It's been a few decades since I took all my tests. I want to review the general and extra class license material. How do I buy the thumb drives? Well, there is one available for the extra, but not yet for the general. Let's see if I can find the spot on there for the thumb drives. Let's put this up on the top screen. And we'll go into DCASLR. Oh boy. .com. And let's ham radio answers. Oh, you know what I did? I posted those on the wrong site. I've got 4 sites I take care of. For Amateur Extra, if you go down to here, all of its Amateur Extra videos available on US Thumb Drive. If you look at the URL, it's dcasler.com/aevids-on-stick. And you can buy them just with a click here, which will take you to PayPal. You don't have to be a member of PayPal. You pay $49.99 and they're postpaid anywhere in the United States. If you're from outside of the United States, please contact me, remembering that these are for the U.S. license. If you're from outside the United States, sometimes I can, it won't really charge any extra for postage. It's about $1 more to Europe. But to some places around the world, shipping charges are just unreal. So, okay, takes care of that. And let's see what we've got. So that's how you get the thumb drive for the extra. Now the general, when I get all the generals done, then I'll put one out for that too, but I haven't yet. This is from Bob K6UDA, who is a YouTuber himself. I'm not sure if you've played on C4FM. I have not. But I've set up a Fusion repeater with a WiresX node and created a room called YouTubers. He's got a number here. It's also accessible on hotspots, which I could try, except I don't have a D-Star radio. The premise of this room is for us YouTube creators to connect. Now that's really cool. Really cool. Okay. And I'm going to set that aside, Bob, and see what I can do. I don't have a D-Star radio. I understand with my hotspot there's a way of going in with D-Star. I'm sorry, going into the hotspot with DMR. It having it go out and D-Star. I have to take a look at it. This is from Kevin Evgen, KE0UXC. So I want to make my house ham radio friendly. Live in a 5-bedroom ranch, southwestern Minnesota, 1-story ranch with a full basement. I have my ham in the middle section of the basement, off of a utility room far from the furnace and plumbing works. I had this set up as a computer repair station, but all of a sudden got into the amateur radio craft. I need to get antennas on my roof, and was thinking I have a wall that I can put up a 1.5 to 2 inch PVC conduit up the wall from the basement into the attic and straight out onto the roof to run my coax cables in. Plans are to run 2 meter 70 centimeter base antenna, a J-pole for APRS, and HF coax to maybe an end-fed antenna. Would like to run a number 6 copper wire up to the ground my antennas for my ground coming into the house from the ground. But I can also run that up the outside if it isn't a good idea. I would put a roof boot on the roof sheathing, reseal the shingles, put a service entrance. Okay. I am going to recommend that you, if you've got antennas in the attic, yeah, I guess you could do it that way. Put a ground rod down where your station is. I would much prefer, if you have outdoor antennas, that you bring the coax to some entry point that goes into your house. Put a ground rod there. Put lightning arresters there and run each cable through a lightning arrestor before they come over to your ham shack. And your ham shack should have a single point ground, which should run also to that same ground rod out there. And then run your number 6 bare copper wire over to the utility ground, which will be just below the panel entrance. If you're all inside, I'm just thinking you still need a ground rod at the station. You can run one, get something to core down through the concrete and then run it in there. But you might be better off with a ground rod outside, I think. Sounds like he must have antenna restrictions if he's doing that. If those antennas are outside, run the coax down the outside of the house to a ground rod where you have lightning arresters, and then run it from there to your station. I know that may increase the length of your ground rod, but you don't want to get a lightning path that starts in the house. Really want to keep it all outside the house if you can. This is from Scott Ettlinger, KC7ZUH. As I watch these videos for Amateur Extra, I'm getting ready to watch 3.1, are the test questions for Section 2 get answered as I watch your presentation? Since it seems the way you teach, you do not point out that info is a test question as you go. You're right, I don't, on purpose. I want to learn the information, but I also like to know when you hit a test question or if you just cover it in the material. Does this make sense? Thank you for taking the time. Scott, the way I've got it set up is before you study a section in the manual, watch the video for it and then study the section. The idea is that then that section will make a lot more sense. And then after you've been through that section, then go study all the test questions that are in there. If you have a problem with the test questions, don't get it, or something seems weird, go back and watch the video again. And if that doesn't answer the question, put a comment on the video with your question. I'll see that comment and I'll reply to that comment because I'll bet you that if you have questions, other people have the same question. So that way, if I reply to the question on YouTube, other people can see the response that's down there. Okay, this is from Michael Neal. Hey Dave, I purchased your tech videos and flash drive and can't get an Elmer in my area of Northern California, since everyone here believes either in self-study or memorizing the Q&A and ham-cram sessions. Can you please send an email of an Elmer I can ask questions from, please? Been emailing the VE, but he's one of the self-study guys and doesn't understand most of my questions. And kudos on the videos. They bumped me from 50% to 71 in the practice test, shooting for an average of 80 to 90% before scheduling the exam. Yeah, this is a problem. When I got my novice when I was in college in 1975. And I came home and graduated from college and went to the Montrose, California Ham Radio Club. I don't know if they even still exist. And no mentor. No mentor. I was a kid. They were older. So three of us kids that were the same age. I say kids. We were in our early 20s. Got together and helped each other. WB6FZL and WB6MMJ. Great people. And we figured it out ourselves. And that's one of the reasons that I've done this channel, is because I didn't have an Elmer. I didn't have anybody to turn to ask questions. I don't know anybody there in Northern California. What I would suggest that you do is go find a club. Now, in Northern California, that's a rural area, so you may have a little trouble finding a nearby club. Might even have to dip up into Southern Oregon. But just ask questions of people, and if someone's willing to answer your questions, ask them if you can ask them more questions. It's hard, I know, when you first get in. You really have to persevere. It's my favorite word associated with ham radio is persevere. Just keep trying and see what you can do. Okay, this is from Bill Ashby. Says, have the person that needs an Elmer contact me. N6FFC at 408-332-4953. Okay, so there, that should help out. Let me make sure. Wow, lots of comments today. Got an even 100 people watching. Okay, all right, let's see. Yeah, persevere. I know it's frustrating. Everything is when you try it for the first time. I can give you many examples. This is from Jonathan Okocha. Just started on antenna design. Thanks for your help and videos. I'm working mostly on IC antenna. Can you please elaborate which antenna pattern is better for radar application, moving target, automotive, or ADAS application? The answer is I don't know. I think the antennas are all phased arrays now. No moving parts. Otherwise, you have to have something to sweep the antenna. Do you have a video on phased array antennas? I've never made one on phased array antennas. I've always been interested in them. I know how they work. To create a wavefront in any desired direction. What if the transmitted signal is IQ? Those are usually combined into RF before they're put out. And that's not going to affect the pattern or propagation direction. If you start with IQ signals, you start with the I and the Q, you combine them to form the transmitted signal. I did radar in the Air Force. That was in the late 70s. Not a huge amount has changed since then in terms of technology. It's smaller, of course, because everything now is solid state. And they're almost all phased array. This is from Dave, KC3LIR. First, I want to thank you for your videos. I became a ham a year ago. Your videos were a great help. I want to know where you buy your UHF connectors. I need a few. Thanks again from Dave. Where do I buy them? QS Radio. That's where I normally get them. Let's go up to the top screen and go to qsradio.com. I don't know why I've gotten them from them. It's Quicksilver Radio, but you've got all different kinds of RF connectors and so on that you can get here. All sorts of things, but qsradio.com is where I have been getting my connectors. You can get them anywhere. If you go to a ham fest, you can get a wide variety of connectors. I like to keep a few that are solder type, and then the rest are crimp. Let's see. Wow, so many in the stream. Technician and general exams together in 11 years. The extra is now much more detailed. Yes, it is. It used to be the difficult exam was the advanced, because the only difference between the advanced and extra was the code speed and little extra slices of spectrum. The exam used to focus on VE stuff because it was the extras who were the VEs. When they eliminated the advanced class license, it was a stinker of a test, they moved all that stinkerism over to the extra test. So I have met people who are advanced, still advanced class, who want to become extra and really don't want to have to go through that difficult test again. But unfortunately, there's no way around it, and you have to do that. Question, is it ridiculously hard to do Tech General and Extra in one sitting? No. I know a number of people who have done it. I do not. Great big not. I do not recommend it. Go ahead and get your Tech in General, and then get on the air. Get on HF. Learn it. Get to the point where you're comfortable in a contest or something like that. And then after a couple years, go for your extra. It will mean more to you. And I've seen that over and over again. I've had people who are really good at taking tests, and they've come to me with their extra, and they want me to tell them, well, what do I do now? Well, in your study guides, if you read them, it does tell you what to do now. But and that's one reason I've got all these videos, is to help people with the what do I do now problem. So yeah, you can do it. But I recommend getting your general and then getting on the air. And then the extra will mean more. Yeah. Let's see. The Wisconsin Military Academy is back. Good to see you guys there. Okay, let's continue. I've got more questions than we can possibly cover. Seem to be falling further behind. May have to add some Wednesday night sessions or something. Let's see, this is a query from Ask Dave from Aram, who's passed his general but doesn't have a call sign yet. He may by now, because this was May 21st. Recently discovered your YouTube. I can't seem to get a question answered, but think I know the reason already. I'm looking to buy a transceiver. No one I know seems to make an all-band transceiver except for the 991A made by Yaesu. They make several. ICOM makes, I think it's the 7100. that's their multiple band, and the TS2000 SAT by Kenwood is, I believe. 991 is not an SDR, but now remember, SDRs are great radios, but then so again are superhets. We are at that point in ham radio where we're seeing a major shift in technology. We've been through this before. The first big shift was the Japanese radios that came out that had just one tube for a driver and two tubes for the finals. And they were in push-pull or together, depending on the manufacturer. And the rest of the radio was transistors. This was a big shift away from the all-tube radios that had been out there before. The next big shift was when those radios went totally transistor. They were able, with the newer power MOSFETs, to make their final amplifiers transistor. They're pretty cool radios, and that's the way it's been ever since. And we've kind of perfected the super heterodyne state of the art. And the good super het radios are very, very good radios indeed. Now the software-defined radios are coming out. Just because a radio is a software-defined radio does not give it any magical properties. And except some of the newer fourth generation radios, the direct digital synthesis kind of radios, like the ICOM 7300 and 7610. Elecraft just came out with one, the K4. Yaesu has their FTDX101D, which I believe is a software-defined radio. I could be wrong on that one, but I believe it is. ICOM, of course, is just going like gangbusters with that 7300. They are selling those things like hotcakes. They're really moving out there. But just because the 991 isn't a full SDR radio doesn't make it a bad radio. It's a good radio. Plan on purchasing, probably lasting the rest of my life. Well, good luck. I have learned from long experience in ham radio that you never have enough radios. How many radios is enough? Well, there's no number for that. There's always more radios. Okay, my antennas are up, a disc cone and a chameleon dipole. There is some QRM from a local radio station having some power supply problems that are not allowing me to listen to any HF on my little Alenco DJX10 handheld WBR. Not sure what that is. Had an Elmer come out with an analyzer and it was the radio station's fault. So none of the TSs I want do 2 meters. The 910 does 2 meters. I'm sorry, the 991A does 2 meters. There has been a historical split between HF and VHF. 6 meters was left out of transceivers for a long, long time because 6 meters is the old channel 1 on television. If you ever wondered why there was no channel 1 on the old TVs, it's because it was the 6 meter ham band. So a lot of people had problems. They'd transmit on 6 meters. They have problems with television interference. Those are bygone days, but so what they've done now is they're starting to include 6 meters along with HF transceivers, and nearly all of them are that way. Not all, but nearly all. So you had an Elmer come out with that. I just want 2 meters. Technically, can't be these days. So my only conclusion is sell more radios. The closest I can find is Flex Radio, but they require a secondary PCB. Even with that, several functions are not available. Seems crazy. My question to you is, why are there no all-band radios readily available, and especially in SDR? Well, you can get radios like the 991 that go up through 6 meters, and then you can get, well, let's see, the 991 also does 2 meters. They have DC to light radios, but the problem is that construction techniques start to change when you get into VHF. Something that looks like a resistor may perform like a capacitor at VHF. You get weirdisms like that. And so you end up almost having to put in a separate radio in there to handle the VHF for 2 meters and 70 centimeters. So there are radios in every manufacturer's product line, Yaesu, ICOM, and Kenwood, that do medium frequency all the way through to UHF. They're not really compromised radios. They're very good radios, but there's just a difference. We saw that with ICOM. They came out with the 7300 and then the 9400, which looks just like it, for 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and I think 1.2 gigahertz. They skipped the 220 band for some unknown reason. And over in Europe, there is a 4-meter band that we don't have here that some of those radios are designed to cover. Let's see, Flex Radio, why there are no all band? Well, that's why, because of the technical issues. An electronic engineer and technician specializing in pro audio. Well, the pro audio, again, you're dealing with audio frequencies and quite a bit of power. But when your connection lines become transmission lines, it gets a little weird. Have yet to get on the air, so just a newbie, just passed the Tech Gen last Saturday. Well, Arem, what I'm going to tell you is what I tell all new hams: persevere. Your first radio won't be your last. Look around at the radios, get one you really like. You're going to have a lot of fun on HF. If you get a 7300 or a 991A, you're not going to be sorry you got it. And most of the work on VHF and UHF is FM. So get yourself a little 50-watt mobile rig and use that as your base station for VHF, UHF. Okay, let's see. Okay. Yeah. I was in advance for 21 years, and I was working with a youth group called the Boulder Amateur Radio Club Junior Division. And there was a teenager there who was about to beat me to extra, so I buckled down and got my extra. Is it possible to run a 100-watt amp behind a QRP radio for HF? Yes, it is. I think even Elecraft sells one like that. One of the problems you run into is the radios are designed to just meet the spurious signal outputs and so on. And what can happen when you put a 100-watt amplifier on them is that they're going to just multiply those spurious outputs by the same amount. You're probably better starting with a 100-watt radio. But if you've got a QRP radio, it is a solution. It's an expensive solution, but you can do it. Just switched you on at our local club meeting in North Dublin Radio Club. So to North Dublin Radio Club, hello from Colorado. We're in the high Rockies here at 7,000 feet. And that is, 24 meters high. And we're way up in the mountains here. And we are also, this year, the Emerald Isle. We have had so much rain. It has been unbelievable. Everything is green, including things that shouldn't be green. Okay, this is from Scott Golightly. KG7WHX says, I am behind in watching your channel, so it's possible that this question has already been answered. On the 11th of May live stream, someone asked about whether you could put your videos on a thumb drive to watch later. Oh, there are several websites with instructions on how to do that, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because I want you to look at my videos on YouTube or buy the thumb drive. If you watch my videos on YouTube, I get the revenue stream from the advertising, and I need that to keep the channel running. And so if you and my videos on YouTube have the standard YouTube license. They're not open source. They've got the standard YouTube license. So you can watch them on YouTube, or if I happen to sell them on one of the thumb drives. Otherwise, it's piracy. Okay. So I would ask you not to do that. They're free. You can watch them on YouTube for free. You don't have to spend a cent on my channel, and I'm delighted to have you as an Augie. But I do make some from the advertising, the Patreon, the tip jar. If you buy Amazon products through my site and things like that, helps keep the channel going. So that's why I don't do that. Okay. New Elecraft KX3 with their 100 watt. That's outstanding radio. The KX3 is an SDR, by the way. How do you drive a linear amp when your output is 100 watts and can't be adjusted? Very simple. There are two jacks on the back of your radio. Well, the three. One is the antenna. You go from the antenna out on the radio to in on the amplifier, and then you go out into your antenna. But there's two other connections. One is the transmit receive, so that when you go into transmit, you tell the amplifier you're transmitting. The other is called ALC, for automatic level control. Now, what the amplifier will do is feed back to the radio, saying, hey, that's too much power, crank it back. And so that ALC line will cause the transmit audio from your transceiver to go down until it gets to the right level, usually around 50, 60 watts, something like that. And if you have, and there's a neat little trick of the trade. If you want to lower the power and you don't have a power control button, you can just hook up a battery the right way and the potentiometer to that ALC output and crank that power down as far as you want. But it's there. Okay, put some money in the tip jar. Yes, thank you. That's at ke0og.net/tip-jar. Again, it's a PayPal thing. You can put in any number, you can buy any number of units. Each unit is $1. And tips raise, on average, $1.10 or $20. I have received bigger tips. The biggest tip I ever got was $218, if you can believe that. I was blown away. Most of them are much smaller, and I thank everybody. If you're a patron, I particularly thank you. I have some patrons who have been with me for a long time. Yeah, there we go. That Benjamin Otto has it, that most linears are designed to accept 100 watts, but the ALC jack is meant to vary the output power from the rig, so you don't overdrive it. It's sort of an automatic kind of thing. Interestingly, with my ALS 500 M amp, which is a Ameritron amp, it's designed for mobile use. There is no ALC feedback. So with experimenting, I found that if I tune my 3000 down to 62 watts, that it properly drives that amplifier. Yeah, the older tube radios count a EMP. By the way, a lot has changed. EMP is where there's a sudden pulse. It can damage some electronics. A lot of electronics has been hardened against it already. EMP acts very much like lightning. Not absolutely like it, but very much like it. And if you've got lightning arresters and things like that for your station, like I do, you're in pretty good shape. If you really want to be careful with your rig, you can do what I used to do when I didn't have myself set up properly, is completely disconnect the rig from everything. And I had my rig, it was a Yaesu FT747. I had it completely disconnected from everything when our house suffered a direct strike, which did some damage to peripheral equipment, but of course none to the 747 since it was completely disconnected. Okay. This is from James Holland. Dave, have you done a video on just 2-meter radios? I have not. And that's a subject that is of interest to a great many technicians. I'm going to set that aside and see if I might come up with a video from that. Okay, this is an invitation to attend the Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society Field Day in 2019 from Dave Slaughter, who is in, let's see if we can figure out where this is, in Georgia, Dacula, Georgia. The Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society, or GARS, will be having its annual Field Day event Saturday, June 22nd, 2 through Sunday, June 23rd, at Harbins Park in Dacula, 2995 Luke Edwards Road, Dacula, Georgia 30019. Would like to extend a warm invitation to you and your family. Well, I appreciate that very much. I will be attending our own field day here in Montrose during that same period of time, but I greatly appreciate it. And if there are some people who are listening from the Georgia area, maybe they will come and represent me. That would be very nice. Yeah, the Starfish series. It was during the 50s when everybody who had nuclear weapons were doing stupid things. They exploded a weapon in outer space just for kicks. You wouldn't want to try that today. You'd bring so many satellites down. But all the power went out in Hawaii. And nobody expected that. And those transmission lines were acting as, receive antennas, of course. And they tripped all the circuit breakers. Well, nowadays, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if there's a lightning strike, your lights may dim for a minute, but they come right back on. That's because it trips the breaker and they are self-resetting breakers. And if after 3 or 4 times they can't do it, they'll just drop. That's technology that's been developed since the Starfish Prime tests. And so that is very likely what would happen to your local power in the event of a major EMP would be the lights would go off and then come back on again. I do point out that if there were an event of that size, that we're in bigger trouble, because that means nuclear war with somebody who can do things that big. I think we're pretty far away from a nuclear war. It's not something I plan for or about. I know the preppers like to do that. Just keep in mind that the prepping and stuff is a hobby. As far as being prepared for disasters, almost all disasters these days are localized. By localized, I mean like to Puerto Rico. Okay, that did not affect operations in Texas, for example. When Katrina came through, it took out part of the Gulf Coast. These are localized in the sense that they don't cover the entire world. There are, the FEMA has worked with local agencies to go through an entire, they've thought through this very carefully about how to respond with communications. FEMA has something it calls the Incident Command System that is a standard way of organizing a disaster response. So the guy in charge of food is always called the same thing as the guy in charge of food, and they've got different ways that they do things and pay for things and so on and so forth. It's actually quite complex. You if you are interested, go to the League's website, look up ARES, it's the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, and they will tell you which FEMA course you can take. They're free. You can take these courses, pass an exam, and get certified in them, and then go work with your local ARES, which will be working with your local county, probably, most commonly with the county, to get these things organized. The communication system in the U.S. for emergency forces, public safety forces, is much, much, much more hardened than it was even just a few years ago. So, for example, the tornadoes in Dayton did not really affect communications very much. Because the emergency responder, first responder communications stayed up. But still, there was plenty of use for the hams at the refugee shelters, handling health and welfare traffic, things like that. So there's a lot that can be done there. And if this is something that interests you, by all means, get involved. There are lots of people who like to do this, some who feel it's their real purpose in amateur radio. I do not recommend setting up your own disaster preparedness response, because you're going to end up tripping over the local authorities who already have a responsibility to do that. So rather than fight them, join them. Okay, this is from Jim W1OBJ. By the way, that was my soapbox. Don't you think you're close to Colorado Springs? No, I am nowhere near close to Colorado Springs. I am way the other side of the state. I'm on the other side of the Rockies. I'm on what's called the western slope. Colorado Springs with Cheyenne Mountain is on the eastern slope, and there's 150 miles between us as the crow flies. It's quite a ways away. Let's see, this is Jim W1OBJ. Hi, Dave. I enjoy your video about ham radio, watching where you built 40-meter dipole. Over the past many years, I have always used the 468 factor, yes, for the length of the half wave, and has always worked out. However, I've recently come across a different technique told to me by my son, Jim Jr. W1WY. He told me that he used the plastic or vinyl covered antenna wire and never cut it. For instance, an 80-meter dipole, you need 200-foot rolls, and he simply ran the ends out about 68 feet and passed them through an insulator wire with the remaining 32 feet or so wrapped around the wire, which is fine. No need to cut and discard the 32 feet. That's fine. When the wire folds back, it is as good as if it were cut there. That's true. And it sure makes changing the length easier. Yes, always leave a little extra there to change. Otherwise, you're soldering on extra pieces. And solder isn't always so good, because if there is some sort of a nearby line, it could melt that solder. Nearby lightning effect. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. Another thing, I'm using this as an inverted V, and using the MFJ 259B and the Comet 500C, I managed to get it real close. The big question, having a wee bit of reactance, what would be the way to phase out any inductive or capacitive reactance? You can use quarter wave stubs or pieces of transmission line that have a measured amount of capacitance. Dipole antennas will not give you a 1-to-1 SWR. If it's really well made and everything is perfect, it'll give you about 1.6 to 1. That's because the antenna runs a bit inductive. It's just the way they're designed. I know we don't talk about this until the extra class license exam, but the fact is that there is reactance in them. If you use a tuner, like the tuner in your radio for 1.6, it'll go down to 1.0 to 1, okay? And you can get that just tuned up absolutely perfectly. In fact, that's why so many HF radios have antenna tuners, because they would like to tune out the residual reactance so that the transistors in there see a nice, clean load. And it can be easily done. As a physician, is there a role for me in ARES? There's probably a role for you with the Red Cross. That's one of the organizations that the ARES supports, is the Red Cross. But go look at it, see if you can find something. Oh, sorry to get you on the soapbox. Sorry about that. I have lots of soapboxes. They're all piled up outside here. Okay, last one here. Glenn Nelson, AE0GF, as newly licensed hams, found your videos very helpful. Thanks for your time and effort. Also, he is an electronics technician at NIST Radio WWV in Fort Collins. Man, I'd like to invite you to stop in next time you're visiting the Front Range, and we'll enjoy showing you around our station. Also, and this is important here, I want to pass along that in October, the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club, along with NIST, will be NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. By definition, WWV time is the correct time. By definition. You want to know what time it is? They've got the clock that we all use. That's not true for the military. The military uses the Naval Observatory. And GPS time, since it's a military system, comes from that clock. But the NIST clock in Boulder and the one at the Washington Observatory for the military, it's Navy does it, are very, very, very closely coordinated. So either one is legal time. Okay. In October, the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club, along with NIST, will be celebrating the 100th anniversary of WWV. Call sign granted October 1st, 1919. Special event station at WWV is being planned for a 5-day period around October 1st of this year. Call sign WW0 WWV. Cool. And the details are at wwv100.com. That's wwv100.com. Okay. And yeah, if I do get there, I will take the video camera. Would enjoy having you. Welcome. Well, Glenn, thank you very much. I don't know if I can arrange it, but I'm going to set this aside just in case I can. Well, there we are. Please take time to like this video, and if you're not a subscriber, to go ahead and subscribe, and check out the tip jar, check out the Patreon page. It's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com, and my user is just KE0OG, so you can do patreon.com/KE0OG. You can sign up for, I've got it set up to $2 a month minimum, although I've had people sign up for $1 a month. You can actually put any amount of money in there you want. I do have a $50 patron whom I really appreciate having. If you are $10 or above, I'll put your picture up on my website. If $5, I'll put your bio out there. Of course, the $10 ones get their bio too. And then $2 and one, I will list your name on my website. So thank you. That's my way of saying thank you very much to everybody. Okay. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of great things happening with ARES. I should do a video about it, I guess. I want to thank you all for being Augies. Just thank you. I enjoy it. I love it. I love this interaction with Augies every Saturday. And I love being able to bring things that I hope are interesting, informative, important, and all that sort of thing. Oh, I've got to make a video on this. I have had some conversations with Riley Hollingsworth about where we stand with that FCC memo and all that hoofra. And it's sort of a standoff right now. All right. Until we next meet, 73.